Thanks for checking out Chamber Web TV. This is Cambridge Votes 2014, a conversation with the candidates for the upcoming October 27th municipal election. I'm Greg DeRocher, President and CEO of the Chamber, and it's my pleasure to sit down with mayoral candidate and an old friend and a good Chamber member, I might add, Andrew Johnson. Andrew, how are you?
Fabulous. Good to see you, Greg.
It's great to see you. I see you all over social media, so you're obviously campaigning.
Very much so.
You're banging on doors. I've seen some videos of you. You're actually going around and talking to people. That's interesting. I know because I do videos.
Yes.
It's very intensive. It's very labor intensive.
It's labor intensive, but it's a great way. I mean, you're a municipal candidate in the past yourself and have served, so you know it's a real pleasure to get out and meet people and hear from them exactly what their concerns are. Unedited. There it is. They tell you pretty plain as day.
Yeah.
And a lot of them it's the first time they've been asked, so they appreciate the opportunity to have input.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wish they had we had had that back when I was running because I'm a kind of a geeky guy, so I like that technology.
Greg, there's still time for you.
Come back, kid. I don't know anyone that says that more to me than Andrew Johnson. You're driving me crazy, and then I go home and tell my wife that, and then you know what happens.
She says, no, it's not happening, Greg. It's a non-starter. No,
tell me something, Andrew. This is the toughest question you'll face as a politician at any level, and you'll realize that when I ask the question, but why is Andrew Johnson running?
It's funny you just talked about yourself in that context. I'm running probably because you're not. I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm running. Greg, you're a person who has a unique combination of a political past and a business experience, and now in your current role, an international business experience, really. And I believe that beautiful combination of knowing how to run your own business, not having been a public sector worker my entire life, but being able to recognize that my 9 years of political elect experience is valuable. It's that good combination and that feeling. I just turned 50 a couple weeks ago.
Congratulations. Welcome to the 50 Club.
25 years of marriage, 26 years in business, so, getting closer to 30 years actively in business. So it's a good time in my life to give to my community in a way that I really enjoy giving to my community. And one of my mentors once said, politics is crazy, irrational, nuts, and fun. And it is fun. And what we like about it is the ability to listen to people and try to help them solve their problems. So it's a good season for me in life, and I ran 4 years ago, and I want to build on the successes of that showing and prove to people that yes, I do want to serve here, and I have the tools to serve here, and I'm a very good choice.
Very good. Yes, I know what you mean. It's fun. It is so fun. I tell all of them, especially the rookie candidates that come in, and I say, even if you don't win, make sure you enjoy this process, because there's nothing better than a democratic process of being able to go out, talk to people, and hopefully gain their support. It's just, I guess it's a sales guy in me, and probably the same as you.
Well, you learn by listening. And it's the most active listening period that a politician will go through. It shouldn't necessarily be so. I think the day you're elected should be the day that you put your real listening ears on, because interacting is extremely important, and people want to be included in the process, and that's often the complaint, right? You guys get elected, and then we don't see you again for 4 years. So,
well, right now you're listening to gather people's thoughts and understand the complex issues in the community. After that, you're listening to convey their thoughts, and sometimes politicians forget that.
Yeah, I agree. I do.
Andrew, what do you think is the biggest issue facing Cambridge and every other municipality in the province today?
At the core of every successful city in North America is vibrant downtown. And vibrant downtowns are one of those things that are a good indicator of health and jobs in the economy. So I think the number one issue facing our city, as it faces many cities in Ontario, in southwestern Ontario anyway, is being able to find that right balance of taxation and incentive for job creation and job growth. We know that the global economy is driven largely by small business. I mean, Fortune 500 companies are great.
Yeah.
We would all love to have one. And we know,
And we have one.
and we know when we have, well, we know when we have a big employer like Toyota arrive on season, it's once, not only once in a generation sort of thing, it may be once in a 50-year period that you get a carrot like that. But the whole global economy runs on the basis of success in those little entrepreneurs that are everywhere. And you know, you don't need to encourage them to do things. They do them on their own, they're self-starters. But when they walk down to City Hall, they're not looking for roadblocks.
No.
One of my constituents once told me, you know, I really just want government to leave me alone. But I think what they mean by that is when I need help, I don't want government to be in the way. I want to be encouraged, facilitated, greeted well, understood. And I think government, the whole posture that local government can have has to be very positive. But there has to be rules, obviously.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you talk about downtowns because that is the core foundation. You know, it's easy, you know, little variety stores do very well in the suburbs where all the people are.
Yeah.
You know, does a variety store do well downtown? Well, we got to figure out a way to make that variety store do well downtown, and that's about attracting people back to the core and celebrating the kind of the center of your community, which really spills out into everywhere else.
And we're so unique, right, as a creation of the province with 3 downtown cores.
Yes.
And 3 unique...
Not to make it harder on you.
3, well, it does make it a bit harder. I think it makes it harder for the city to understand who it is. But Joe Clark once said, Canada's a community of communities. Well, Cambridge is a community of communities of communities. Like, it's not just your downtown cores, but it's the neighborhood, vibrant downtown cores and vibrant neighborhoods as well. You knit them all together, they're all unique. Where can government facilitate that?
Yeah.
So the single biggest job is, I think, fitting in as a government with a positive posture and trying to help jobs and the economy grow.
We talk about downtowns and, you know, having the visitor center here, and we always have our big backdrop done, and you've seen the, you know, the backdrop with the beautiful picture of downtown with the church spire. And, you know, new people will come off the 401, walk in, and they'll be getting their maps and things, and they'll look at that picture and say, well, where is that? Just down the road. They can't believe it's here.
Right.
They can't believe an image like that could be in a community. And, you know, oftentimes we just take it for granted. Oh, well, yes. Seen that spire 10,000 times.
I know, it's, we've got some beautiful vistas everywhere. I've spent a lot of time in Hespeler in this campaign. I think it's, you know, when Janet and I first got married 25 years ago, we got married in Elora. We went there for our 25th anniversary and revisited that. I was 24 years old when I got first elected to Elora Council. And you know, the Grand River runs through Elora. And
beautiful town on its own.
And that natural mill-driven, down by the river sort of atmosphere. We have 3 down by the river atmospheres here, but when you're walking through Hespeler, it's even that much more rustic. In some would say a gem yet polished.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure it was polished in its day when the mill was the cat's meow, but. You know, I think their best days are in front of them.
Yes.
And I'm glad to be
Or could be.
part of that.
Or
Let's hope
could be
so.
in front.
Let's hope so. We have to have a positive attitude about this.
Andrew, the chamber, every election, but we're always looking for people who have big, bold ideas. Because, you know, we need to have leaders that have big, bold ideas. And not just for the next 4 years, but beyond. What's Andrew Johnson's big, bold idea?
Well, it's interesting you talk about big, bold ideas. I think one of the things that taxpayers are afraid of is big, bold ideas. Because they're thinking, well, what is that big, bold idea going to cost me?
And it doesn't necessarily mean money.
Yeah, fair enough. The Toronto big, bold idea might be a Sky Dome that costs hundreds of millions of dollars and then gets sold for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah,
And the taxpayers wondering, okay, really, was that a big, bold idea I wanted to embrace?
It was a big, stupid idea, maybe.
But I'll tell you this, I believe that Cambridge has the bones to be the #1 small business friendly city in North America. That sounds bold because North America's a big place and there's cool places all over North America. And a recent Conference Board of Canada report didn't talk about Cambridge being first on a list. And it didn't talk about Cambridge being first on a list of North American cities. It talked about 50 Canadian cities. And we're nowhere near that. And we can talk about that. But being the #1 small business friendly city in North America is as much about posture and attitude and also about exploiting the natural geographic features we have that are an absolute godsend. Look at 5 interchanges on a major highway, 2 scenic Ontario rivers and 3 historic downtown cores. Do you get better?
Well, you know,
you don't get a better hand.
I've said
than
it
that.
dozens of times interviewing candidates. You know, we're within a day's drive of the wealthiest population in the world. We're on the busiest highway in Canada. We are the center of the universe, but we need to believe we're the center of the universe.
We are a center of the universe. We are the center of our universe, for sure. And people, those same people who want government to get out of their way, also want their government to be the one that creates the situation where they can stay at home, spend their dollars at home. I don't know how many interviews I've done in town where people say, you know, I love the river, I love living here, but I don't spend my money here.
Yeah.
Whenever I want to do anything, I'm getting up and out of town. And whether that's a single person, a young family, married couple without kids, retirees, there are things to do in town. There's great bones, as we say, but no guts, no, we're not pushing it.
And sometimes, you know, I've often said it doesn't take money. It sometimes just takes a state of mind.
Well, it is a state of mind. Are we a victim in the greater scheme of things? You know, are we a victim because of our geography, because of our history between Galt and Berlin, going back 150 years? Are we going to fight that forever and ever and ever?
The Scottish and the Germans at it again.
Yeah. Or are we going to embrace the beautiful things that we have about our unique population dynamics? And again, I mentioned all those geographic pluses. I think if you take a positive attitude going into your relationship with the province and with the region, people will be attracted, and I think it's infectious. People love people with positive attitudes and people with a vision. And so when you put that out there, we're going to look at those components that make a small business friendly environment. Development charges, business taxes, business tax levels. Employment base, are there things that we need to be searching out? Education. That's pretty exciting. Exciting idea.
Let's stay on that theme of economic development and small business. And as you well know, I know, you know, you and I have discussed it in the past, but we have a kind of a, you know, a weird economic development set up in the region of Waterloo. We've got Canada's Technology Triangle is largely responsible for foreign direct investment, not domestic foreign investment like from Quebec or Manitoba, but it's got to be outside of Canada. And then we've got our local economic development organizations in the municipalities selling land and doing a lot of the internal growth and expansion opportunities that companies have here. So as a result of Maple Leaf leaving and not getting Dr. Oetker like I really wanted to get, the Chamber's kind of pushed a move to get the region looking at this and talking about this, because there were really issues at the regional level. Well, that led down the path of what we're involved with now, the potential creation of a Waterloo Region Economic Development Organization. The Cambridge Chamber admittedly has a few concerns about that. Number one, the main concern being we're an industrial community. We have the largest per capita factory worker of any other city in the province. Our economic development is quite a bit different than Kitchener and Waterloo, and the focuses there got to be a little bit different. So we're afraid we might get lost in that. What's your impression on regional economic development as being proposed?
Well, conference board report, let's go back there. Waterloo #1 in Canada for attractiveness to people coming to town, whether to do business or to live. Many of the categories they talked about are things that we could succeed in down here but don't for a number of reasons. Kitchener #18, Cambridge #49. That is kind of a failing grade report card as far as I'm concerned for how we are succeeding.
Especially when you're geographically so close to #1.
It doesn't make sense that we're not succeeding in competing with our own peers, but I understand that those results are probably what makes us intimidated by being part of the team, the group, right?
Good point.
But I would say that that's also our biggest success. We live in the shadow of people who are already successful, yet we have better geography than they do. So I would want to be on that team in a New York Minute. Not New York, you know, but I'm just using the
Cambridge
phrase.
Minute.
In a Cambridge Minute. We are so, I don't know, I think we're just shy to be proud of where we're at and be confident that others will be drawn to us as we market. I don't think I would ever want to be part of a regional economic development team to the exclusion of our own agenda. Until we are one politically, if we ever become one, as Mr. Sweeney suggested, we should become one. And yet no government has the courage to make us one, yet they have the courage to make even bigger issues one. So, you know, it's we're blessed and we're cursed with the province of Ontario deciding who we are and how we should look. I think we define ourselves. I've lived in Galt. I love Preston and I love Hespeler. When people ask if I'm from Cambridge, I say, of course I am. And then their next question is, which part, right? So it's very much the same relationship with the region of Waterloo. I think when you're in Berlin, Germany, being a part of the region of Waterloo is a real advantage. And not every firm can be a high-tech firm. And more and more high-tech firms, I think, as you see two-way all-day go service reach the region in 1 or 2 or 3 different ways. As it reaches the region, the natural geography of the 401 is going to become an issue. And we kind of have all kinds of trump cards in our hand as they realize, you know, track costs money, and getting people to the track costs money. The 401 is there. It's the natural transportation corridor, and it runs right through our living room. As a matter of fact, bisects our house, right? So I think being part of CTT Plus, or the expanded version of it, or WTT, or whatever you want to call it, you know, Guelph is kind of part of this natural geography as well. Brantford, the whole Grand River watershed, the middle Grand River watershed, is population rich, tech rich, employment potential rich. You know, it's just when you look at this conference board report, I just brought a copy with me to just remind me to mention it. If we look as part of the region, we're stronger with the region. So I think things that are good for Kitchener and Waterloo are good for us by nature, right? We succeed as they succeed.
Yes, absolutely. You mentioned tracks. Speaking of tracks, the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, as you know, was opposed to LRT. We were opposed for various reasons, not the fact that we don't like to spend money on public transportation. We advocate for it. However, we were concerned that it was the wrong technology at the wrong time for our region. And you can argue all of those points. Successfully on both sides, might I add.
And many people continue to argue.
And many people, that will never go away, not unlike amalgamating Galt Press and Hespeler. It'll take years and years and years. However, it's coming. It's a done deal. Democracy held up, and they took a vote, and the majority wins, and that's the way it should be. However, getting it to the region, or getting it to the rest of the region, which is Cambridge, basically, it could be who knows when, maybe never, as some of us maybe believe. However, we've got a provincial government in place now that has a majority mandate. We have a member of the provincial government in our community.
In a transportation portfolio.
And the Premier of the province has said, that did make a comment, that maybe there's an opportunity where we could advance stage 2. However, it's all going to be predicated on users. It's all going to be predicated on the numbers. That's in fact why we don't have it now. What would you do as mayor, leading our community, to try and foster that program so that we could maybe get it sooner?
Well, you know...
or should we?
It's interesting that you say, point out that we have a government member here. When I was first working in government, I was 20 or 21 years old. I was a policy assistant to Leo Bernier. Leo Bernier was the Conservative member for Kenora and the Minister of Northern Development and Mines. And one of the tasks I was given in my first or second month working for Leo was to look at education capital assistance and health care capital assistance programs, EduCap and ELDCAP, elder care assistance programs in Northern Ontario, and plot the grants by riding. So in other words, tell me about Geraldton, tell me about Rainy River, tell me about all the places that got money and all the places that didn't. And it was horrible for me as a 20-year-old to see that if you didn't have a government member, you literally were shut out.
You didn't give money.
Yeah, and that offends that offends my generation. It may not have offended Leo's generation. It may have just been the way the world was. It certainly offends my children.
Yes.
I have a 15 and a 19-year-old, and the 19-year-old's already studying political science as part of his liberal arts program at Redeemer University, and he's going, is this really possible? Do governments actually work that way? And I think there's a residual of that in the public service, right? So, hey, it's a plus to have the member for Kitchener and the member for Kitchener.
Yeah,
Centre,
you
the
like
member
it when
for-
you have it, you don't like it
and
when
the
you
member
don't
for
have
Cambridge
it.
on the government side locked down for 4 years. So I think as mayor of the city, I probably will have a fairly steady appointment at the Pink Palace to talk about what our needs are. And I don't think they're not going to know what they are. But on the whole issue of transportation and the LRT, I don't think it makes sense to build half a system. Obviously, Cambridge wants into the deal. I'm very interested to see how rapid busing will roll out. I mean, we're hearing on the street from everyone, and I would say a majority of Cambridge residents don't believe that it's going to measure up to being anything special, because how can a fast bus drive on a slow road? But I haven't poured over.
It's an oxymoron, if you ask me.
I haven't poured over the details of it, but I think the region's going to have a bit of a black eye if the fast bus doesn't go fast on an open road, as promised. And our job, as I have an environment degree from the University of Waterloo, and a lot of that was talking about Canadian studies, urbanization, demography, understanding flow. If we don't build up instead of out, we're never going to have the ridership. And unless Canadians change their habits and stop loving their cars, which we all do, we love them, and keep building roads for those cars. And if technology catches up and we're able to flow traffic within the same grid, but you've been driving around the 401 area here, the top of the city is congested. Franklin is congested. Road traffic is not the future solution, certainly not in a $4 a liter gallon, or
No.
$4 a liter gasoline price, which inevitably will be
Oh, yeah,
a reality,
for sure.
right? So 4 years ago when I ran for office, I threw out there the idea, you need to let young people onto the bus system without charging them. And it was immediately said, that's another $8 million cost to our system. This administration doesn't have any trouble spending $8 million, and our region certainly doesn't have any trouble spending $8 million, and you can easily save $8 million in road costs if you look at the size of the budgets that we're dealing with. I think if you let young people explore the way to set up their life without a car, where they can get a better service from one end of the core strip through the region to the other. I mean, we may live here, we may work there, we may live there, we may work here, but it shouldn't matter. If the system is built properly, there's a frequency of service thing. People, we want to make it more convenient, right?
Yeah,
It's just like getting down to Toronto. Who wants to get in their car and drive on the 401 and not know what kind of traffic conditions or road repairs they're going to be under, and then try to get down to the Gardner and see it closed? You want to get on the tube. You want to get on the go, and we want to make that convenient for the region.
I would agree.
So I think you have to think of the success of LRT as an important economic engine. It's going to be something that people who want to leave the big cities to come to a vibrant Waterloo region are going to be expecting. So we have to be there as a city to lead, and I will be part of that leading.
Do you think that the proposed, now I don't even know whether you're in favor of it or not, but the proposed GO service that we've been fighting for 40 years, that now we maybe have a chance because we've got that member of government here, do you think that would enhance that whole local public transportation system?
You've been in politics a long time, Greg. There isn't anybody running for elected office in Cambridge who doesn't think two-way all-day GO service to Cambridge is a good thing.
Might be silly to do that.
No, well, there's the realism of the expense of it, and the tracks, and understanding how long it takes to get through EA processes and development processes. I think we have heard from this government, which now has a mandate, that they understand the region needs to be connected.
Yeah.
Arguably, there's as many people in the lower half of the region, where we are, that want to go and have business interests, as there are in the upper half of the region. But I can assure you, we don't know all the people who want to go. And you know what they say, if you build it, they will come. we need a provincial government with courage to build infrastructure. Just like we need a city government in Toronto that has the courage to act rather than talk about acting and let time go by. Are you surprised to hear me suggest that courage is one of the things, the elements, key elements missing in the political equation here in Cambridge? Our administration today does not have the courage to invest in the city. If you don't invest in the city, others aren't going to invest in the city.
Yeah, it just, I
That's how it goes.
couldn't agree with you more, actually. Speaking of investing into the city, probably the core principal thing, talk around our boardroom table at the Chamber is a convention center. We've wanted it for 30 years plus. We've worked on it. We've tried to bring individuals to the table, and it doesn't take necessarily money from the city, but we need somehow to move that along the tracks. There will only be one convention center in the region of Waterloo. It should be here.
Hopefully
and
we
if it
will
is
have
here,
one.
it'll be, it will then give us that extra ace in the hand in the region.
Right.
Because we'll have the dynamic convention center that's attracting business from all over. What do you think?
Well, I want to ask you a question to that. Why do you believe, as a business leader, that the convention center idea is so important to business? You deal more with businesses internationally and so on. Are businesses saying to you, unless we have an opportunity to display and or attract, like, why has that got such a sizzle, do you think?
I think it's got more than just the businesses in the I think there's many businesses in the region of Waterloo, and particularly in Cambridge, scene, as we're talking about Cambridge, who find it when they want to do meetings or conventions or bring in customers from around the world that they have to take it outside the region.
Yeah, there's no
because
floor
there
space.
isn't any facilities here to be able to do that. The other thing is the spin-off economic benefit that a convention center can bring.
Right.
I was just at a conference where there was 500 delegates who go into this sleepy little hollow in beautiful Prince Edward Island and dominate the economic expenditures for that 3 or 4 days.
Everybody's in town.
Everybody's in town and businesses are making money.
Right.
And, that's how you really inspire the vibrancy. And it's, I have the opportunity in my business to go, all over the place and see these nice little communities that are our size, who have these wonderful convention centers that are attracting people all the time into their community, and they're leaving large sums of money for
Right.
the local residents to spread around.
Right.
So I think it has more than just a direct connection to business. It has that spin-off connection as well.
I think it's important for the city not to be afraid to invest in what business is investing in and what is important to business, and more so not direct dollars or taxation dollars necessarily, whether it's the influence with more senior levels of government, whether it's the contacts that one has developed over one's business career and political career, to exploit the fact that our geography kind of calls for that sort of solution, whether it's an expo center or a hotel and convention center. Meeting space, you were good to remind me that is so essential in the business process. And if what you're seeing on the street is from the business community is that we just don't have that space, not only here, we don't even have it in Kitchener-Waterloo.
No.
Then it's coming. It's a question of where it's going to land. And I mean, there's natural geographic reasons why it would be better right where
Here.
we have so many good spots that we could pick within stone's throw.
I know, I can see your mind
Uh,
actually thinking of
Yeah,
pieces of
no,
property.
well, and knowing some of the people who own them, right?
Yes,
So,
yes.
yeah, I think it's a posture of partnership, right, as opposed to adversarial relationships.
Yeah, it's more inspiring, I think, is really the key element. Like,
Yeah.
how do we go out there and champion and say to development industry,
Right.
well, we want this, so come talk to us and we'll help.
Well, we'll be alongside you as a business leader and your group. I am sure that not only your local government, your regional government will want to be championing that. And the city does have great connections with land available. So now's as good a time as any to do
I
it.
think so. I think it's long overdue, but it'll come. I'm sure it'll come. Andrew, city budget's about $102 million, just just the city portion of the budget, about 70 million or so comes from taxes, and about, the balance, about 30% of the tax base is generated through user fees and building permits and all those kinds of things. However, we have a pretty dramatic infrastructure deficit. And we share that with our other municipality friends in the province as well. But there's just no provision to be able to, as a civic leader, to be able to go and double taxes in order to take care of this. There are potentially ideas for other revenue sources. Can you think of some things you'd like to champion as mayor to tackle this infrastructure deficit and look for other revenue opportunities?
Well, revenue sharing opportunities has been going on since I was in municipal government years ago. Even my early time, the disentanglement between federal, provincial, and provincial, municipal, the downloading through the Harris years of social services to the regional budget, the aborted uploading of education expenses, and trying to figure out how all that should work out. I'm not one of those who's eager to see taxes in general rise, because I think taxes in general rising for the population, like on a property tax base, it's a pretty horrible little tax tool. Consumption taxes are probably a better way to raise revenues, but that's not our department. So I understand small urban mayors and city mayors have a general concern with how the province treats them, and yet find themselves stuck with the reality that the province is in probably as bad a shape or worse than the cities are. All we can do in our little corner of the world is create the environment for success in business. I believe as small business drives the economy everywhere on the planet, if we create the environment by reducing red tape, we simply cannot survive in a world of red tape. So I hear story after story of municipal red tape. I hear story after story of high development charges that Waterloo Region imposes so that Woodstock can succeed in attracting new businesses. It's that much further away from the border. It's that much further away from one of the bigger cities in North America. We ought to be able to exert enough influence, I think, to change some of those things. I think red tape is a big issue. I think the city has also been shy to get into the microfinance issue, or the ability to come alongside someone who's on fire with an idea. And also, I think I mentioned it earlier, investing in ourselves as a city. It takes sometimes a generation to pay off some of your investments. Be those soft infrastructure investments like splash pads or water parks, or improving the nature and quality and updatedness of a park. But man, do they make a difference to the people who live there and the quality of their life. And as such, the spin-offs for the small businesses that support each other. I spent a lot of time in Galt as well in this campaign so far, and closed door after closed door after closed door. There's a high vacancy rate in the business community there, and you can just feel we're missing something. And I think what we're missing is positive attitude and positive posturing. So the city has to be a happy place to do business, and the city has tools without increasing taxes. The city has tools, the ability to plan and the ability to support the business community, all of our BIAs and neighborhood associations across the city in creative ways. Arguably, Greg, all the wealth that we need to solve all the problems of this region is already in this region. The question is, a lot of it's getting taxed federally. That's a big business. A lot of it's getting taxed provincially. But our community foundations are poised to grow. And I believe the wealth in this community can be liberated for the betterment of this community. We have so many philanthropists getting Rotary clubs and Kids in the Clubs and other service organizations together on a regular basis with your wellness and poverty coalitions and with your philanthropists and your city governments. It's a pretty good group of people. We can figure out our problem here locally.
What do you think of municipal bonds? Because nobody's mentioned that. And I remember I went through it when I was on council. talked a little bit about it. I think it was maybe the Harris government that was kind of thinking about it at one point, but.
I don't recall a municipal, I mean, when we do, when we have done, I mean, I'm a former regional councillor next door in Wellington County, which is akin to Waterloo Region, so it's a big business. It's roads, it's policing, it's garbage, it's
All the fun stuff.
significant infrastructure. But debentures all the time to raise funds for projects like that and spending. But municipal bonds is a really great idea, and I don't know if there's a regulatory reason why we can't do that.
I think it's maybe provincial legislation you got to get. Maybe it takes going to the province and saying, why don't you allow? Because I know they do it widely in the U.S.
Yes,
There's,
absolutely.
municipal bonds all over the place, and that's how they build their infrastructure and do all the things that they do. But nobody had mentioned it. A lot of people said, oh well, we'll ask the feds in the province for more. But
One of the tools I like is our local community foundation, which is way smaller than it should be.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's taken off yet as the destination.
it was probably
choice.
laid out of the gate for foundation, like a lot
For
of the
sure.
other foundations and municipalities had been going for many, many years.
For sure, and Greater KWs is
Yeah.
a big
Yeah.
boy in that department.
And been around probably 20 years longer than they came.
And we're proud of them.
Yes.
But we want to come alongside them and grow our thing. And I believe the city has a role to partner with that, to attract the entry-level giver, which means people who want to give back to the community. You talk about municipal bonds.
Yeah.
Well, $10 and $20 gifts are lots of them are every bit as important as the $1 million gift.
Absolutely.
And that is a pride in ownership thing that neighborhood associations could have a nice contest throughout the year.
Yeah.
Make the teams equal, and then set about to see who wants to invest in the community, right?
Yeah, I think that's kind of neat. It's kind of a neat idea to look into. Our international airport is a gem from our perspective. We've now got the ability. I use it every chance I can, even though I know I've got to change planes in O'Hare. I've done it so much now. I know O'Hare
You know the
very
drill.
well. I know exactly where to get the great burgers, and they have great burgers at O'Hare, by the way. So, but I think it's a really important tool to attract investment into our region. Recently they had a study on what should we do with the airport, how we should expand it, should it be expanded. There were 4 options. One was do nothing, just leave it the way it is. Number 2 was do nothing but paint the outside. And, well, basically, I say that tongue in cheek.
Tongue-in-cheek.
Number 3 and number 4 were options of expansion. Longer runways, bigger planes, more runways, new terminal somewhere for option number 4. But it was all predicated based on private investment, not on public investment. In fact, I think the way I understood it was the whole goal was to reduce the dependency on, I think the region throws in $6 million a year to keep it going right now. But I think the objective was to push that down and make private investment the key element. What do you think about our airport, and do you think it is that tool that some of us believe it is?
I'll use an example I think people can identify with right away. Center in the Square is one of those municipally owned enterprises, which the city of Kitchener invests a lot in, and one would argue loses money year after year. And I think the region is culturally rich when it has things like that in it. But if you don't use it, you lose it. That's the sad reality. And or you're faced with, putting $1 million into a program and then also being faced with a $1.2 million shortfall. So you're wondering whether this is an albatross around your neck. As a business person who has used Kitchener Airport, I think the last one I was on a bearskin airline, like a Sicard tube, right? About 9 of us flying
Quite
to
an
Ottawa.
experience.
Flying to Ottawa. I'm not sure they're doing that anymore. But if we don't see the value in it, I think we're missing the boat. And it's not every region that has had the courage to develop an airport. And I guess we go through our seasons, how much should the people supplement that business? But if you don't, it's a key for business movers and shakers to get around and you want them in your midst.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want them at Pearson thinking which way they're going to drive the car. You want them hooking right in.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to get out if you're an international businessman, and I know several of them in town. I know several who've left Cambridge because of development fees and have gone to Brantford and or other small communities around here that don't have the same problems. Woodstock's another. So yeah, it's a gem to be invested in. I think both publicly, but also to attract the right private investment to grow. We have to balance that again with the environment. I think it's really important that we understand that jet traffic, period, all day, 24 hours a day,
Is obtrusive.
And there's noise environment issues. There's also, how much of this do we as a country want?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to be a part of the airline business, we have to do our share to make sure that we grow as a country and regionally in sync with proper environmental principles.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, but I'm a big proponent of it, user of it.
Yeah. That's a great area. It's just wonderful to park, walk 10 steps, check in, walk another 10
The
steps.
security experience isn't quite as intimidating either, right? Right?
Oh, it's just so wonderful. I just get so excited when I can use it. Andrew, what does Andrew Johnson's Cambridge look like in 25 years?
Well, that big, bold idea I talked to you about sounds big and bold, but I think it's entirely achievable. If you're a #1 business-friendly community in North America, what goes with that is people who are spending their money at home, people who are not intimidated by their civic process, by government, people that are celebrating the natural heritage and features that we have, the rivers. Number 1 and 2 features are those 2 rivers, without a doubt. And I think it's one that has a decent and healthy respect for the green space that comes with it, because
That livable community thing.
well, we need to respect and appreciate our farm community, and as a region, we're blessed to have 4 townships that still exist. One wonders why politically, but I don't think anybody in the cities or the townships questions why the green space exists. So I'm a key proponent of locking down as much of that green space as possible, trying to help my township mayor colleagues and their councils stop from developing themselves in inappropriate ways, like arguably the whole
Into
region.
urban megas.
Well, like arguably the whole region has. I mean, I looked at the map at the GRCA the other day of what we used to look like when we had things on us that weren't cement.
Unbelievable, eh?
It is unbelievable and much healthier, arguably. So everything has to be looked at through the lens of sustainability, which is why we have to get used to some ideas that we're not comfortable with, right? We have to part with our car more often than we would want to. We got to ride the bus more often. We got to get on the tube, the LRT, the GO. We got to do the better thing as often as possible.
Yeah.
So that's 25 years from now. We're thriving, of course. We're not finishing number 49. I guess I haven't mentioned to you. There was a couple things that jumped out of this at me, Craig. Travel to work by public transit, walking and cycling in 2011, 48 out of 50. Population employed in cultural occupations in 2011, 48th out of 50. Hospital bed availability, 46th out of 50. Access to specialists, 49th out of 50. Population employed in healthcare industry, 47th out of 50. That doesn't sound like my Cambridge 25 years from now.
Is your Cambridge first out of 50?
I have a problem with saying we're the best, because if we're the best, that means someone else isn't. I think we all need to get to a standard together that that is a beautiful place to live and raise your kids and retire and do your job. So the #1 business-friendly community I can live with being the best. I want a high standard of living for everyone, and I think everybody does. They want quality of life,
Oh,
right?
for
So I don't want to be looking at the 18th and the 1st as neighbors and being jealous. I'm happy for them,
Yeah.
but I want to join them. And if we're all number 2 together, that's okay. You know, as long as it's at a good standard. But I think all of that's achievable, and you just need to have a positive frame of a positive mindset. You need to have experience to do that. And business experience is so key.
Walt Disney said, if you can dream it, you can do it.
Fair enough.
I think he proved that it can happen as well. Andrew, I'm really excited. I'm excited for one reason and one reason only. I get to vote online this year.
Okay.
And I think it's a wonderful thing. Internet's over 25 years old. It's the 21st century. For crying out loud, I do my banking online. I do security investment online. I do all kinds of things online that are private and secret, and I need my security. But I don't give it a second thought. Why can't I vote online? Well, this year I can. I'm so excited. I've told Lisa's going to take a picture of me on October the 11th in my pajamas.
In your jammies at the terminal.
At the terminal.
Yep.
What do you think of online voting?
Well, I was in the clerk's office yesterday, just making sure that Janet's and my packages were arriving, and they are, and we're happy about that. You know, my wife works in Mississauga, so that commute and her business life and having 2 kids doesn't make it easy to, on a Monday, find yourself wondering where the polling station
Yes.
is. You know, and we're 45 and 50. My kids, you know, at 19, there's no question. His entire generation and the one half generation above him and everybody.
They're going to vote on their smartphone.
Yeah, they're going to say, when can we vote now? Okay.
Yep.
Where's the app? Done. Right. Obviously, we're concerned about voter fraud. I don't think there is anybody who isn't concerned about voter fraud. But as you and I both know, voter fraud has existed as long as voting has existed. And I'm really impressed. I mean, when I was in Wellington County serving on council, the last election that I won in 2003, when I got to run against 2 mayors at the same time and beat them,
Yes.
there was a phone-in vote and a mail-in vote. So, you know, we were looking every day at all the votes that were coming in, and we were able to, as a candidate, you know, you're doing business differently this time as well. You're identifying your support, and you're encouraging to get out, and you know whether they've actually got out because you're getting a report every day.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and voter turnout in 2003 in Center Wellington was 56%.
Yeah.
And it's 29 down here.
That's amazing. That, for no other reason than that, getting greater voter engagement is important.
It is really important. You know, I know it's a lot of work to vote because there are so many offices and so many candidates running for so many offices. You know, and school boards. And you've got a lot on your plate to think about, and regional offices as well. So, yeah, I sympathize with the voter, but online you can do a lot of research. You can read about me at voteandrewjohnson.ca. You can read about my opponents as well. Those of us who would like to serve, it's all there. And I think it's the way to go in the future. I appeared before council 4 years ago and said, by the way, you know, I ran in Wellington before and I was successful, and we had phoning voting, and we had, why don't you do this? And they didn't, 4 years ago, they didn't quite have, again, the courage to step forward.
Boy, it takes courage.
Well, and they're a leader in this,
Takes
right?
courage to lead. That's why leaders
And
are
they're
courageous people.
They're a leader in this region now because Kitchener-Waterloo, I understand,
We're the most
are
progressive and technologically advanced society in the region of Waterloo. I love that.
I'm all for it, Greg. That's your
Andrew, any
question.
final words to the voters of Cambridge?
Well, folks, I'm pretty excited about the election. I've run municipally many times before, and I have served 3 times. I have business experience, and I believe that we can be the most business-friendly and high quality of life city in North America. Certainly by year 8, and well on our way within 1 mandate. So I encourage you to vote, whether electronically or in person. I encourage you to give me active consideration. I would love to serve you. I have the experience to do it, and I look forward to you participating actively and knocking that 29% voter turnout right out of the park. And Greg, it's been a pleasure to spend time with you. It's always fun talking about politics with you.
I know.
Thanks so much.
We've had so many of these conversations.
Thanks so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for checking out Chamber Web TV. This is Cambridge Votes 2014, a conversation with the candidates for the October 27th municipal election. Again, I'm Greg DeRocher, and this has been mayoral candidate Andrew Johnson. Andrew, thanks very much.
And you.